Hey everyone, welcome back to TTA Performance's YouTube channel, and today we have a customer's 81 Turbo Trans Am getting a cam swap. It actually rounded off a cam lobe on the exhaust of number 2 and had a collapsed lifter on number 8 intake. So I thought now would be the perfect opportunity to show you guys how I put in a distributor and how I get all the timing and everything lined up. When we're dealing with a brand new flat tappet hydraulic camshaft, there's going to be a break-in process. And I don't like to be, cranking on the engine, trying to get it started up, turning the distributor and everything, trying to, get it to fire so that I can break into cam. It's very crucial for cam break-in on a flat tappet hydraulic camshaft that you get the engine running as quickly as possible and to actually get it up to 1500, 2000 RPM and run it there for 15 to 20 minutes, varying the RPM slightly, getting all that oil splash from the crankshaft onto the cam so that you can break in the cam. It's basically the cam lobes are wearing to the lifters. So let's talk about the distributor and how I set it up. A lot of people will ask me, or they'll tell me, oh, I'm putting the distributor back in and I don't know if I got it right. I got number 1 facing number 1 cylinder. Okay, that's small block Chevy style talk. The 301 is basically the polar opposite of a small block Chevy. Now, it doesn't matter where you put number 1 on the distributor cap. As long as you have the rotor pointing to it at top dead center of the compression stroke of number 1 cylinder, it doesn't matter. You can put the spark plug wire for number 1 at that terminal wherever you have the rotor pointing. But the key to that statement is make sure that you're on the compression stroke of number 1 cylinder. Now, some people will just generalize and say, well, you got to put the harmonic balancer on 0. Yeah, but the crankshaft actually goes around 2 times, because the piston goes up and down twice. That you're going to come up on the compression stroke, but then you're going to come up also on the exhaust stroke. So just blatantly saying, well, as long as the dampener is on 0, you're fine. Well, no, it could be on 0 of the exhaust stroke, and then you have the infamous 180 degrees out on your distributor, and you're shooting flames out the carburetor and nothing's starting. So I'm going to kind of go through all of that with you and how I like to do things. So the first part of it is, where is number 1 from the factory on the distributor cap, when it's in the car? And that's what's different than small block Chevys and everything. So I have the distributor here from this car. This is an 81 301 turbo distributor. This is a US spec car, so this is a computer controlled car. We have our flat 4-pin connector for the electronic spark control and timing control. It has a standard HEI 7-pin ignition module, which is for your timing controlled distributors. It is locked out. There is no mechanical weights and springs, any kind of mechanical advance going on inside this distributor, and there is also no vacuum advance on it. It is all strictly computer controlled. This is your standard, this is on all HEIs, this is just your connector that goes to your coil. So here we have the distributor. I have the distributor cap here. Let me get this installed on here so that we can kind of take a look and see what's going on. I apologize for the neighbor's dog barking. You might have saw a leaf blow or something, I don't know. Okay, distributor cap is on. This is your connection for your power and your tack wire and everything going to the coil from underneath. When you're looking at this, this is normally installed in the car. This is facing the inside of the driver's side fender. So if we're placed in the engine, at the back of the engine, this is facing driver's side. If this is facing driver's side, when you're looking at it, number 1 will be at the rear. Number 1 will be at the rear driver's side facing the firewall. Now, some people like to say, well, it should be number 1 up here and it should be facing number 1 cylinder. Small block Chevys do that, but Pontiacs, well, at least the 301. I did notice that 400s are different than the 301. But basically, here is number 1 in the factory location. So if we have number 1 here, the other thing that you have to note is that the Pontiac actually spins counterclockwise. So you're going to have the same firing order as a small block Chevy, but you're going to be going counterclockwise, not clockwise. So you're going to actually be 1, then 8, then we're going to go 4, 3, 6, 5, 7, and 2. So that is how it's done from the factory. Like I said before, you can have number 1 as any one of these points if you want, as long as you get the firing order correct with the ignition wires and that you do have the rotor pointing at wherever your number 1 is on the compression stroke of number 1 cylinder. So let's take a look at the engine, and I will show you what I'm talking about as far as harmonic balancer, timing marks, numbering the cylinders on the engine, and so on. So we'll take a look at that next. Okay, here we're in the process. We've already put the cam and lifters and did all the rocker arm adjustments and everything like that. So I'm about ready to stab in my distributor. So we're going to come down here to our timing mark, and hopefully we can see it. There might not be enough light. I'm actually going to get the light shining on there better. Yep, there it is. So you can see that the timing mark on the harmonic balancer, the little line, is facing 0. I have it lined up with 0. Now, which 0 is that? Is that 0 for the top dead center of number 1 exhaust stroke or on the compression stroke? We want compression stroke. So let's take a look at the cylinders first before we determine that. Driver side, starting at the front, 1, 3, 5, and 7. Those are your cylinder numbers. Looking on the passenger side, 2, 4, 6, 8. That's how GM most of the time does it. Ford does it differently. You can also tell by looking at the intake manifold. This one's kind of dirty. Let's see if we can see it. I'll wipe that off. You have a 13. That means 1 and 3. Remember, the 301 uses one intake runner and splits off inside the cylinder head to the 2 adjacent cylinders. So that intake runner is for cylinders 1 and 3. Back there we have 5, 7. That means cylinders 5 and cylinder 7 are fed off of that intake port. So one of the ways that you can tell if whether or not you are on the compression stroke, you can take number 1 spark plug out, put your thumb over the hole, have somebody bump the key with the starter, and wait for it to blow your thumb off. That's compression. That means both valves are closed. Then you look on your balancer and see how close you are to lining up with 0. The other way you can do it is if you have the valve cover off, you can look and see and rotate the engine and watch when the exhaust valve opens on number 1 cylinder. If you see the number 1 exhaust valve open and then close, that's most likely the exhaust stroke. Then you can rotate over one more time. You should see the intake valve open, close, and then you should be on the compression stroke of number 1. Another way to do it is when the piston's at top dead center, all the way up, your mark's on 0, you could pull the spark plug out and actually blow air into the cylinder. You'll have to get a good seal on the spark plug hole, but see if you are leaking air at all. If you're not leaking air, both valves are closed, you're on the compression stroke of number 1. I already verified that with this engine. I am on the compression stroke of number 1. My timing mark is on 0. So let's go get the distributor and we'll show you how I drop it into the engine and get everything to line up where I want. Okay, one more thing that I wanted to show you before I drop this in there is with the distributor cap on, we already determined where number 1 was going to be. We said it was in the rear right here. That's going to be number 1. So what I will do is, I already marked it with the cap, but what I want to do is actually take my marker that I have right here and take my permanent marker, and I'm going to say, oh yeah, right about there on the body of the distributor, that's my number 1 post for the cap. So then I'm going to take the cap off, I'm going to extend my mark up and over onto the body so I can see it from the top. So when I get the distributor placed into the engine, I'm going to want my rotor to actually point to number 1 post right there. So now comes the trick. We have a helical cut gear for the distributor. So as the distributor starts to sink down into the engine, it's actually going to rotate the rotor as it goes down. Plus we have to try to engage this flat blade into the groove of the oil pump drive shaft. But there's a trick to that too. So let's get this over there. I'll show you. Usually what I end up doing is I end up turning this the opposite way of engine rotation. Remember, this rotor spins counterclockwise, so I'll actually start with the rotor clockwise farther than where I want it to go, because as it drops in, it's going to come right into place where I want it to be. So we'll get it over there and let me show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so I'm about to put the distributor in, and what I like to do is, I'm going to try to do this one-handed. I take the distributor, and we have our mark right here of where the number 1 is on the distributor cap. I like to rotate the rotor clockwise a small amount before dropping it in, because like I said, the helical cut gear, when going down, is going to rotate it back in place in line with the black with the mark that I made. And I'll show you what I'm talking about here. Let me switch hands with the camera, and we'll get this kind of put into place, sort of. So before I engage the cam gear with it, I'm going to turn the body so that I can make the mark that we have. Let's see if we can focus in on that and get it unshaded. We're going to want that to face towards the firewall like we were stating before. And then I have the rotor kind of pointing clockwise away from it. And I got it kind of where I want it to go. So let's jiggle and wiggle and see if we can turn and get it down in there. And wow, first try. It is down. It is down against the block, so we're engaged with the oil pump. Now, if we look at our markings, you can see the rotor's a little bit past where I want it to go. Not terrible. What I could do is actually rotate and line it up and see where we're at that way. So what I'd like to do now, let me back up a little bit here. If you find that you have the rotor in a close enough position, you kind of like the direction it's going, you think it's going to line up where you want, but it won't go down all the way because it won't engage the oil pump, that's okay. If it's up just a little bit, but it's fully engaged on the cam gear, all you have to do is rotate the engine. Either rotate it by hand or crank it with the key a little bit, and it'll fall into place. So as long as it's engaged with the cam, you won't lose time. It won't come out of time. So you can, by bumping the key and whatnot, it'll rotate, it'll eventually find the slot in the oil pump drive shaft, and then it'll fall down, or you gotta wiggle a little bit, it'll go down where it belongs. Rotate the engine over again till you get it lined up with number 1. Make sure your balancer is on 0 again, and you're good to go. Turn the base wherever you need it to. So let's get the distributor cap. Actually, the distributor cap is right here for the car. I'm going to get my mock-up distributor cap just to show you guys how I like to do this. So we'll get, again, I'm trying to do this one-handed. So if we lay the cap on there, not hook every wire and heat shield and mess that's in here. So we put this on. I got a couple spark plug wires holding it up, I think. Where are we at? Come on. Get on there. I'm trying to do it without rotating the cap too much. Oh, I think I got some hoses and wiring and all kinds of stuff in the way. Getting caught. There we go. So we got it on. Now, technically this is lined up, should be lined up with number 1. Kind of looking it over. It's twisted a little bit. In order to advance the timing, I would have to take it and actually rotate it. Let's see, this thing spins counterclockwise, so if I turn the rotor clockwise, it would advance timing. So if I ended up advancing the timing a little bit, it's a little off from where I'd want to be. It kind of starts stretching the wires as you go. So let's pop this off and take a look again. Yeah, it's pretty much pretty much in line, a little bit advanced. I could keep it there. Do I want to take it out and try again? This is the stuff you'd have to deal with. Technically, it would work in this position. Me being a perfectionist, I'll probably pull it out, try to rotate one tooth on the cam gear, you know, move the rotor and drop it back down, and see where I can go with it, and try to make the base rotate counterclockwise a little bit. Let me give that a shot. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. I did lift up the distributor and I rotated the rotor counterclockwise, one tooth on the cam gear. Had to do it by feel. Dropped it back in. I lucked out a bunch of wiggling. Actually got the oil pump drive shaft lined up again. You know, lightning strikes twice, I guess. And got it down onto the body of onto the block. And now if we look, and I'm going to try to get some more light in here. Now if we look at where our markings are, you can see I'm a little bit clockwise. The rotor's a little bit clockwise of the number 1 terminal of the cap. And that's good, because what that means is that that is a little bit advanced on the timing. And that's something I like to do with these, because especially when you're dealing with a brand new flat tappet cam, I want this thing to start immediately. And what I like to do is put the distributor in and actually have it clocked a little bit advanced on the timing, because it starts easier, it runs better, you don't have your glowing exhaust manifolds because all the combustion's taking place in the exhaust because of retarded timing, stuff like that. So it's okay to have actually further advanced timing when you're first starting the car, because like I said, it'll start easier, it'll run cooler, it'll run better, smoother, and then once everything's broken in after the 20-minute run-in at 2,000 RPM, then you can bring it down to an idle and then set the timing where it needs to be. So I'm probably going to leave the distributor here. I think it's in a really good spot. When the cap goes on, even if, let's say, this is really close to where I want my base timing set up, when we put the cap back on, that's where the cap would sit. If I have to retard the timing a little bit, that's okay. It'll straighten out even more. So as you can see, if I have to retard it, yep, no problem. If I have to advance it, it's in a good spot there. This isn't, facing way over here towards the front of the motor. I'm not stretching the wires, trying to reach the cap and everything. So this is a really good spot. We're gonna put the clamp on it, put it snug, and we don't want to completely tighten it just yet because we may have to adjust it again. But now with the distributor in, we are all set to go. Bolt everything else back up. So hope this was very informative for you guys. It answers your questions. If you do have any more questions, you can ask them in the comments, or feel free to give us a call at TTA Performance. You can find us, contact us through our website, send us an email at ttaperformance@gmail.com. But until next time, hopefully the next video that we post is going to be breaking in a hydraulic camshaft, hydraulic flat tappet camshaft. So thanks a lot, guys. We'll see you soon.